The desert had its own language, whispers carried by wind, echoes of hooves, the restless scrape of sand shifting like memories that refused to settle. To most travelers, the land between the Gila River and the rust-colored ridges of the Black Mesa was nothing but silence. But to Nalin, warrior of the Chiricahua Apache, every sound was a message, every shadow a clue. She lay half-conscious near the remains of a collapsed canyon trail, her breath tight and painful. The rainstorm from the night before had turned the normally dry ravine into a roaring flood. She had been returning alone from a small scout mission when the ground gave out beneath her horse. The fall was sudden, the impact sharp. She remembered little after that, only flashes of wet earth, a sky cracking with lightning, and then darkness. When she woke, the world was quiet again, but she couldn't stand. Her leg throbbed, swollen and stiff. Her canteen lay out of reach. The sun was rising, and she was alone, or she thought she was. Miles away, Caleb Hart, a cowboy known more for drifting than settling, guided his sorrel mare along the worn cattle road. He wasn't looking for trouble. He was, in fact, avoiding it, but trouble had a way of finding him anyway. He'd grown up around the frontier long enough to know that fate didn't always wait for permission. He was heading toward a trading post, humming to himself, when he saw the signs. Hoofprints, scattered gear, and what looked like an area of disturbed earth near the canyon's edge. Something, or someone, had gone over. Caleb dismounted, crouched, and studied the trail like his father once taught him. Broken weeds, a fallen saddle bag, but what caught his attention most was a feather lying under a rock, red-tipped and patterned. Apache, he swallowed. Most cowboys would have turned around. Not because they hated the Apache, but because crossing paths unexpectedly could be misunderstood. And misunderstandings here often ended hard. But Caleb wasn't most cowboys. He didn't like leaving signs of danger unexplored, not if someone might still be alive down there. He tied off his horse, tested the ground, and then carefully made his way down the steep path carved by the storm. Nalin heard footsteps. Light, careful, someone human. Her pulse quickened. Not with fear, but readiness. Injured or not, she refused to be helpless. She reached for her knife, but her hand trembled. A voice called out, "Hey, you alive down here?" It was a young man's voice, steady, cautious, alert. Nalin didn't want help. Pride ran deep in her blood. But the desert didn't care about pride. It only cared about survival. "I am here," she managed to say, though her voice was cracked. Caleb followed the sound and slowed when he spotted her partially propped against a rock. She looked exhausted, sunburned, but alert. He raised both hands to show he meant no harm. "Easy," he said. "You're hurt." Nalin assessed him quickly. Lean, dusty from travel, but not armed with anything drawn. His rifle remained slung. His expression wasn't bold or mocking. It was concerned, in a guarded kind of way. "I do not need your help," she said sharply. Caleb nodded. He wasn't offended. "Maybe," he replied, "but looks to me like you need water. And a way out of this ravine." Her silence was answer enough. He took slow steps forward and offered his canteen. She hesitated, then accepted it and drank with small, disciplined sips. "What happened?" he asked. "Storm," she said. "The ground broke. I fell. Anyone coming for you?" Nalin paused. "Not soon enough." Caleb looked up the canyon walls. The sun was already climbing, and heat shimmered in the rising light. "Well," he said with a shrug, "then I guess I'm helping." She narrowed her eyes. Why? He didn't have a grand reason. He didn't think he needed one. "Because you're alive," he said simply. "And I'm here." Getting Nalin out of the ravine wasn't easy. Caleb made a temporary splint for her leg using branches and strips torn from his own shirt. She tried to stand once and nearly collapsed. He supported her without touching her more than necessary, careful of her comfort and her culture. "You listen well," she muttered at one point. "To what?" Caleb asked. "To silence. To respect." He grinned slightly. "My mama raised me halfway decent." She didn't smile, but something in her expression softened. The climb up the narrow path took nearly an hour. Twice he steadied her when the rocks slipped beneath her foot. She didn't thank him, but she also didn't pull away. At the top, his mare stood waiting, flicking her tail. "You can ride front," he said. I'll walk, and led her. Nalin drew herself tall. I can ride alone. On that leg, no chance. She considered arguing, but the truth was too plain to deny. When she settled onto the horse, Caleb made a point of not offering a boost, letting her use her own strength, even if limited. When she gripped the saddle horn tightly, her face set with pain, he didn't comment. Some people needed words, some needed space. Caleb knew which she was. They traveled slowly across the desert. Caleb kept the mare steady and paused often to let Nalin rest. She said little, observing the landscape, occasionally scanning the horizon as though expecting danger. Only when they reached a shaded grouping of boulders did she finally speak. You head toward the white trader's town. Yeah, Caleb answered. They've got a doctor there. No doctor, she said immediately. You need one. I need time. And my people. How far? 2 days from here. Caleb whistled softly. Not on that leg. Nalin frowned. She wasn't used to being told what she couldn't do. But she wasn't foolish either. Finally, she said, take me to the river first. I can travel by water path. Caleb scratched his chin. River's half a day east. But there's been raids near there. Rangers on edge. They see an Apache and a cowboy together. They might not ask questions. Then do not let them see us, she replied, as if it were obvious. Caleb chuckled. Right. Simple as that. Despite her pain, she shot him a glare sharp enough to warn him not to mock her. He raised both hands in surrender. All right, east it is. They rode through heat that blurred the desert like melted glass. As they traveled, bits of Nalin's story emerged, not through direct questions, but through small clues she allowed to slip. She was not just any warrior. She was a pathfinder for her band, trained since childhood to track storms, read terrain, and guide others safely. She had been on a solitary scout mission when the storm struck earlier than expected. You were alone, he asked. It was my task. And dangerous. All worthy tasks have danger. Caleb admired the way she said it, not bragging, just truth. You afraid of anything? He asked lightly. She looked at him with a steady expression. Yes, he blinked. Really? What? Failure. The honesty surprised him. You won't, he said before he could think. Nalin didn't respond, but she seemed to carry the words with her. They rested at dusk beneath a low ridge, where the shade finally returned. Caleb gave her beans warmed over a small fire. She ate slowly, conserving strength. You ask many questions, she said. He shrugged. Just trying to know the person I'm helping. You do not fear helping me. Why should I? He replied. Because your people and mine do not trust each other. Seems like people don't trust a lot of folks these days, Caleb said. Doesn't mean I gotta follow their lead. She studied him carefully, as if trying to find the trick in his words. When she found none, she looked away toward the stars rising. You are strange for a cowboy. You're strange for a warrior. She lifted one eyebrow. How so? You let me help you. Nalin didn't smile, but the desert wind almost carried one across her face. By midday next day, they reached the river, a sweeping current carving its way through the canyon. The water sparkled under the sun like scattered silver. Nalin exhaled softly. The river meant hope. The river meant home. But as they approached, Caleb spotted something that made him motion for her to stay quiet. Boot prints. Fresh. And not just one set. Several. Rangers. He listened. In the distance came faint voices and the clatter of gear. If they walked straight ahead, they'd run right into a patrol. Trouble? Nalin asked calmly. Could be, Caleb whispered. We gotta go around. No, she said, shaking her head. The river is quickest. They will not harm someone injured. They won't harm you, Caleb agreed. But they might harm me for helping you. Nalin hesitated, this time for the first time showing real worry. You should leave then, she said. Go another way. I will manage. Caleb frowned. With a leg that can barely hold you. Not happening. You cannot keep walking beside me, she insisted. Your people will think you betrayed them. Caleb crossed his arms. Well, I'm not leaving you. So we'll think of something else. She stared at him long and hard. You are a stubborn man, she said. Most people tell me that. Then something shifted in her expression. Not warmth, not gratitude, but something more complex. Why do you refuse to leave me? She finally asked. Caleb thought for a long moment, looking at the river, the canyon, the endless sky. "'Cause where I come from," he said slowly, "you don't walk away from someone who's fighting to live. Doesn't matter where they're from." Nalin held his gaze. This time, she did not look away. Dash dash dash. They retreated into the brush, staying low as they moved upstream, avoiding the ranger camp. Caleb helped Nalin cross a shallow portion of the river where reeds grew tall enough to hide them. She grimaced with pain but kept moving. "You're tougher than you look," Caleb said. "You talk more than necessary," she replied. "That's probably true." Once safely past the patrol, they paused near a cluster of cottonwoods where shadows draped the riverbank. Nalin suddenly tightened her grip on Caleb's sleeve. "Listen," he stilled. The sound was faint, but real, distant hoofbeats, steady and familiar. Nalin's eyes widened. "My people." Within minutes, 3 Apache riders appeared from beyond a curve in the canyon. They slowed when they saw Nalin, and their expressions shifted from alarm to relief. One rider, older with streaks of gray in his braids, dismounted quickly and approached her with deep concern. "Daughter of the Path," he said in Apache. "We feared the worst." Nalin responded in her language, explaining what happened. The riders listened, nodding, then turned their attention to Caleb with unreadable expressions. Caleb stepped back slightly, raising his hands, not in fear, but respect. The elder studied him. "You helped her." "Yes, sir," Caleb said quietly. "You did not have to." "No," Caleb agreed, "but she needed help." The elder nodded slowly, an acknowledgement, not given lightly. One of the younger warriors brought a second horse forward for Nalin to ride. Her expression carried strength again, the kind she'd lost when trapped in the ravine. She looked at Caleb. "You have done more for me than many would," she said. "I will remember." Caleb tipped his hat. "Just glad you're going home." She hesitated. "Just a beat." Then she said, "Walk with honor, Caleb Hart. And you too, Nalin." She mounted her horse, sitting straighter than she had in days. As the Apache riders began to depart, she turned once more. "You refused to leave me behind," she said. "For that, I will carry your name with respect." Caleb nodded, humbled. Then she was gone, riding along the river, her warrior spirit unbroken, her people guiding her home.